Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries with John and Hannah.
Hi.
And today we're going to be cracking open the postbag once more to listen to some of your lovely listener call-ins. And our first call is from Jason of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, Hannah and John, great call-in episode. As far as the name thing, I don't know that it's an American thing. I mean, we have people that are referred to by their middle name. Usually it's because they want to be here because that's what their parents call them, or, you know, because they have somebody else near them that's the same first name. So they'll say, oh, call me my middle name instead, right? But what always throws me with you is I think it's Glenn Hallstrom, always says John Lard. He doesn't say the Allen in there. And it seems to me if you list all three of them out there, you want to be called all three. But I don't know. As long as we don't call you late for dinner, right? But yeah, great episode. Thank you so much for your thoughts on sci-fi versus fantasy, and sci-fi is more work. Probably. That's probably true. Unless you play beer and pretzel sci-fi, which then we get back to the science fantasy part, right? So that I can definitely see that. And Hannah, that was totally I'm happy I did it, but I wasn't trying to yank your chain. I was thinking Star Trek, but Star Wars came out of my mouth. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I wasn't intentionally trying to goad you there. Just came out that way. But great show. Looking forward to your next one. Take care.
Yeah, to be fair, Jason, as far as I can say, like I say, I'm not really bothered what names people use. I've been called far worse. And as for the Star Wars Star Trek thing, I wouldn't worry about it. It's not like someone just merely mentioned Star Trek in our sort of regular weekly Zoom chats with our friends the other night, and there was like 2 hours of talk about Star Trek or anything.
No, that's a bit harsh.
Oh, there was enough talk about Star Trek. Let's just say Hannah's very passionate about her Trek. Much in the same way that, like myself, I'm very passionate when I talk about D&D.
Indeed.
And we're all very passionate about things that we get involved with online. But no, it's all taken in good fun, right, Jason.
Yeah, I'll forgive you.
But thank you very much for the call in. We're glad you enjoyed the episode. So let's see who we've got up next.
Hello, this is Joe from Biggest Geekus, and listening to your Harmful Hags podcast. And I have to tell you, I have never, ever, in the 40-ish years that I've played, witnessed or myself just attacking an old woman described as such by the DM. So I'm not sure how much of an actual problem that is, but that might make you guys feel a little better about it being harmful. Because that's, to me, that when I heard you guys say that, my first knee-jerk reaction was, oh, that's not a thing. So, yeah, when I just take everything at face value, maybe that's just me, but if the DM describes an old woman, then it's an old woman. I don't make any assumptions about it. So, all right. Hopefully it's not as big of a problem in other games, but I've never even heard this as being a problem. So maybe I'm just sheltered. All right. Well, keep up the good work. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Hi, Joe. This may not be a problem in most people's games, but it has certainly been a problem in games with one particular player.
I think what Hannah's trying to say is that, like, I've been sort of conditioned by a few games I play in, so that, like, when there's a certain, like, description trigger when someone mentions an old woman, it's not specifically just an old woman, it's like when they sort of give that description and they're a bit sort of like a crone. I've been in too many games where, like, they've turned out to be a witch, and once the description goes in a certain way, my brain just goes that they're a witch. You need to, like, deal with this now. So I think we're a bit tongue in cheek with you.
The number of times I've basically been holding you back from some NPC while everybody else has a conversation with them, because you're like roaring to kill them.
Yeah, I think what Hannah was trying to do with the episode, and as we said, it was slightly tongue-in-cheek. I mean, don't get me wrong, we don't think it's a major, serious problem, but I think Hannah was just trying to save my, like, poor feelings by calling it that instead of, like, calling it, why does John always attack, like, old women NPCs when they appear in games? So I don't think it's really a massive problem in games. Although I have been amused by, not so much your reaction to it, because your reaction was entirely sensible, just sort of questioning it, but some of the reactions we got by people were, let's say, very knee-jerk. And I still haven't stopped laughing about someone saying that the politically correct people like me are ruining the hobby. So I'm still laughing about that now. It's probably the only time in my life I've been called, like, overly politically correct. So I'm sort of holding on to that sweet, sweet moment and chuckling away to myself.
Social justice warrior, you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, ask anyone. I'm terribly politically correct. Oh. But thank you very much for the call in, Joe. Okay, let's see who we've got up next in the postbag.
Hey, John, it's Randy at Biggest Geek. It's been a while. Been behind on listening to my other podcasts. Red Dice is the top of the order, so I had to get to it. I'm going to be catching up this week. Anyway, love the discussion of game prep. We did one episode on it. I think it's great to hear about you guys. You guys sound pretty low prep compared to me, John. You're a little bit closer than, I don't know if it's Johan's and Hannah maybe, but I really like your ideas. Always wanted to be a bullet point guy, but man, I can't help but keep wanting to write details. And I mean, I don't try to predict where they're going to, I try to predict where they're going to go and who am I kidding, but I can't ever be sure. And I'm never right. So I don't know why I bother, but I'm a detail kind of guy. So I tend to spend hours prepping. But anyway, great show. Can't wait to listen to the second one and the other guys. Obliviacs, man. I saw that on the line. Can't wait to hear the Obliviacs episode. I'm going to try to catch up. Take care and have a good one. Keep up the good work.
That was, of course, Randy from Biggest Geekers. Thank you very much, Randy, for calling in with that message. I'm glad you enjoyed the first game prep episode we did. And whilst we try and keep most of the episodes down to like a reasonably sort of short, sort of punchy length, we are hopefully going to do every now and again do like a slightly longer sort of episode scattered in. And I've done a few episodes on the previous iteration of the podcast with Johannes. I always have a great time when I'm chatting to him about games. And obviously if we can get other people involved for other episodes and we can sort of work the schedules, we'll quite happily do that. Although, to be honest, most of the time me and Hannah have enough trouble getting our own schedules to sync up to record an episode, never mind when you throw someone else into the mix. So it's just one of those lucky sort of coincidences of timing that I sort of threw the idea out to Johannes and we were able to actually record it. But I think Randy's got a little bit more to say.
Hey, John, really enjoyed the two episodes with on gaming prep. I think it was nice having that third person, so Johannes, to be there to help out. I really thought it was interesting when you asked, do you prep differently for different games? And I'm not sure if I heard anybody say, yes, that's true. But, oh, yeah, Johannes did. I definitely do, because when I do a sci-fi game or some genre I'm not comfortable with, I do find myself searching the web and spending more time on the details. And whereas fantasy, I'm probably more comfortable just letting things fly. I'm not sure how much time I have left. It says 90 seconds, so total. It's not bad. Question. Married to a fellow game master, does that help your prep? Does having Hannah around and vice versa, having John around, does that help you prep to bounce ideas off? And another thing I've always wondered, do you guys play in each other's games? I've heard Hannah plays Star Trek and you run OSC, I think, game. Do you guys play in those games as well as run your own? So in other words, are you both playing in each other's games? Just kind of wondered about that. Anyway, keep up the good work.
So thanks for the questions, Randy. So first question, do we prep differently for different games?
Yeah.
I certainly do, mostly because some games are more crunchy than others. If I can get away with just a short list of bullet points and not worry about any monster stats or maps or props or any of that stuff, then great. If not, then some of that stuff's going to be required, or miniatures or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think certainly for myself, I agree with Randy, because I've watched so many fantasy films, read so many fantasy books and played so many fantasy games. I find it easier to sort of fall back on what I know with fantasy, whereas when I'm doing something like sci-fi or sort of modern day or something like that, I tend to like look at it in a bit more detail because I don't have quite that sort of knowledge base sort of like ready that I can just roll out when I need to.
So then on to, do we talk to each other about the games we're running and bounce ideas off each other? Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we sort of like formally sit down and I'm like, right, I'm going to prep Hannah, what do you think of this? But when we've sort of run a game, we'll tend to like chat to each other about how it went, you know, what the players are planning on doing next session, and we sort of bounce ideas off each other a bit. And
if we're stuck for ideas, we'll tell each other what happened in the last session, and the other person has usually got something they can pull on, some thread that they can...
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly find it useful because you can sort of get a little bit too fixated on one way of looking at things. So it's always nice to have like a fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of opinions on a subject. So sometimes you'll be grappling with like, oh, how am I gonna get this particular scene to work, because you're sort of locked into that sort of way of looking at it. Then someone else will come along with a completely different idea entirely out of left field, and you'll be, even if you don't use it entirely, you'll be like, yeah, there's something in that I can use.
And do we play in each other's games? We have done. We're not currently doing any regular games that we both play in.
No, unfortunately, as we were saying with some of the earlier calls, due to our sort of like work schedules, it's pretty difficult because I work early mornings to sort of like mid-evenings, and Hannah works mid-afternoon to like late evenings. So quite often when I'm running my OSE game, Hannah will be at work for like the first half of it, so she can't really be in that game.
So yeah, there'll be at least 3 evenings where I can't do any gaming.
Yeah.
And then there'll be 2 evenings where we're recording for this or doing other things.
Or like when you
and then we want to spend some time together
of course
where
we do,
we're not gaming.
I mean, like when you were running your Star Trek game, or I nearly said Star Wars as well there. That's Jason's influence, that is. But when Hannah was running her Star Trek game, it's on like a bit of a hiatus at the minute, but you're planning to get it started up again. Because that's really early in the week and takes place in the evening, because I have to get up quite early for my job, especially earlier on in the week, I can't really be like staying up dead late to like play a game when I've got to like get up early in the morning and be doing like all my work stuff. So we've not really been playing in each other's games in sort of like recent memory. We have done in the past when our schedules were a bit more similar.
But the big benefit of that is that when we have got an evening where we're both together and there's a GM available, we can both play a game together.
Yeah, we've played in a few one-shots and stuff, haven't we?
When we're both GMing games, we've got another GM there who we can talk to about the game who's not playing in it, and therefore there's no spoilers, but who's happy to help us out with the game.
And I think also, whilst our tastes in games do like intersect at certain points, we have got different tastes in games.
Yeah,
so
John prefers like darker sort of games, and
whereas you like the more sort of heroic sort of 4-colour sort of style stuff, don't you? Which, those sometimes intersect. Like if we're playing in sort of like a standard like fantasy game, you can have your dark moments in that, you can have your like really heroic moments in that, and our interests intersect there. Now, with your Star Trek game, that wouldn't really be my vibe for a roleplay game, much as I love Star Trek, just because it's not to my personal taste. And likewise, when I was running my sort of like World of Darkness sort of grim London games, that wouldn't be to Hannah's taste. So, let's say it's difficult at the minute because of the schedules, but we do try and play in games together whenever we can, and certainly when we get the opportunity to do like a one-shot, like one of our friends is running, we'll normally jump in that if it's a game that we're both interested in.
John and Hannah, I love the Obliviax episode. Lots of good ideas. I really liked how you were talking about with the Obliviax look at you and then think that maybe you're a better version of him and he wants to figure out some way to move on with that. It would be really intriguing if an Obliviax did actually get eaten by multiple people, but could somehow, come out in their waste. Gross. It's gross. But anyway, keep getting multiple memories and become a powerful being. But I used to love them back in the day. They just sounded so cool, but I can never find good ways to use them. Thanks for the ideas. I'll have to import some of this in my current campaign. Hopefully Joe won't hear this because he's playing in it. But anyway, keep up the good work. Bye.
Thanks again, Randy. Glad you enjoyed the episode about the Obliviax. Yeah, it was in all of these monsters where there doesn't seem to be a lot to it when you first look at it, but if you think about it a little bit, you can sort of spin it in lots of interesting different ways. So we're really glad you enjoyed that. And whilst we're sort of chatting and answering Randy's calls, we should also as well just say thank you very much to Johannes Pavela, who joined us in the game prep episodes that we did that we were just talking about. So thank you very much. Very enjoyable conversation, and we hope maybe to do a couple more episodes featuring Johannes in the future, schedules allowing. So let's see who we've got up next.
Hey, Anna and John, it's Joe calling in with your weekly Pathfinder update. I was looking for the memory moss in the Pathfinder bestiarity, and I couldn't find it anywhere on the SRD. And I was like, come on, this can't be the first one, can it? So I just Googled Pathfinder memory moss, and lo and behold, it's not in the bestiary. It's actually in the section about traps and hazards, because they don't have it statted out like a monster. They use it like it's a trap or natural hazard. It's a CR5 monster, so decently tough. It does not produce the little mini moss people, and when I use it, I will absolutely make it spit out the mini moss people, because that's just too adorable and frightening to not use. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. So another awesome episode. Thanks very much for the inspiration. Take it easy. Peace out.
That was Joe from the Hindsightless podcast. Thanks very much, Joe. Glad you enjoyed the Obliviacs episode. And I'm glad to hear that it did feature in a way in Pathfinder. And to be honest, I can actually see it functioning more as a trap or a hazard.
Yeah.
And we've used the phrase sort of like trap monster a few times when we've been sort of recording episodes. You know, these monsters where they do seem more just like something that you spring on your players. It's a quick trap or a hazard that you have to overcome, and then you sort of move on rather than like a fully fleshed out sort of monster. But yeah, I've got to agree with you, man. How could you use the Obliviacs and not have like the little Mosslings turn up? I mean, that's just too good a thing not to use. And next up, we've got Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Take it away, Jason.
The Obliviacs, great episode, very interesting ideas. Kind of reminds me of both Horror Express and Attack of the Mushroom People, Ray Otis's favorite movie, Japanese movie. Anyhow, yeah, I think the Obliviacs is a neat thing. I think your idea of doing the one shot where they play the seedlings is really neat. The other thing, of course, you could do is, if you want to do a longer term thing, is maybe some weird side effect, or a wizard or something has made it so changed it so the Obliviacs doesn't lose the memories in those 24 hours. So now you've got that evil doppelganger party running around out there. But yeah, lots of possibilities. Great episode. Looking forward to the next one. Take care.
Thanks very much, Jason. Glad you enjoyed the episode on the Obliviacs. There seem to be a couple of people who've enjoyed that, and I think your suggestion of a potentially altered version that can serve in the function of an evil doppelganger is a good one. Let's face it, we've all seen that sort of evil, darker side version of player characters be used before, and it's a trope for a reason. And I think the Obliviacs is like an interestingly slightly different way of doing it, rather than just saying, oh, it's doppelgangers. So thank you very much for that suggestion. Glad you enjoyed the episode. And next up, we have another message from Joe of the Hindsightless podcast.
You two did it. You got one that's not in Pathfinder. No devil swine, much to my chagrin, because that sounds like an awesome monster. And yeah, I instantly thought of fat, aristocratic, rich people turning into devil swine, the Animal Farm thing. And I love the devil swine. They got wereboars, but that's just a wereboar, Boars are cool. They're awesome forest animals, but pigs are messed up, man, and they love eating humans. So awesome, awesome episode, you two. Thanks again for always being cool. Peace out.
I shouldn't worry too much about it not being in Pathfinder, Joe, because to be honest, it's not in most editions of D&D either. I know we mentioned in the episode that Gavin Norman was saying that it's one of the monsters that was sort of in the BX version of D&D and then just seems to have disappeared, and that's why he wanted to include it in Old School Essentials. And I think it's a great monster. It's a shame it seems to have sort of fallen by the wayside. And like you say, wereboars are cool, but there is something about these sort of fat, aristocratic devil swine that just makes them very interesting and very different to the other lycanthropes you get.
I do now kind of want the phrase "pigs are messed up" on a t-shirt.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. Glad you enjoyed the episode. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Joe's just finished listening to the episode.
Yeah, you could use the devil swine in a bunch of really cool ways. There's the whole urban legend now that the rich people, the ultra rich, the Illuminati, whatever, they get together and they eat babies and stuff. So you could absolutely do a group of super wealthy, noble people that sort of like run the city and have strange parties where people come and they don't always leave, stuff like that. Super horrific. I love it. I love the Devil Swine. Not in my current campaign, but I will absolutely bring them in to my next one. So thank you again for all the inspiration. Peace out.
Yeah, and it's a very common thing that we've noted a couple of times in previous episodes. I think with goblins, witches, and redcaps.
Yeah.
Some marginalised group, or some group that people don't like for whatever reason, gets accused of eating babies. And it goes on through history. And hey, you know what? The Devil Swine's quite a fun way to use that particular myth, trope, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think the idea of a sort of mysterious cult, as you were suggesting, is well established in like both horror and the sort of fantasy genre. I mean, certainly in games like Call of Cthulhu, where there's like it's like cult a go-go. You can't turn a corner without running across a cult of the ancient gods.
It's also that whole they're gonna eat a baby thing is basically here's a MacGuffin that is effectively of no value but also priceless, that the players instantly understand why it needs to be protected because it's a baby, and instantly understand that the person that wants to eat it is bad
Because it's a baby.
because it's a baby. And yeah, it's possibly a cheap shot.
It's an instant
But
motivator, isn't it?
Yeah. It's one of the darkest things that you can think of without, like, directly having to do some horrific roleplay with the player characters. Because you can just say that that's the intention without ever putting the baby in the scene.
Yeah.
And that's quite horrific enough. But it's still that weird sort of metaphor of it doesn't really happen.
Hey, Hannah and John, Devil Swine episode was really good. Love William Hope Hodgson. I think The House on the Borderlands was the first of his stories I've read, but since I've read his Sea stories and some other stories, maybe that's not true. I think I read the Karnacki stories before House on the Borderlands. Anyway, great writer, highly recommended. And the ideas you had for incorporating the Devil Swine were really good. So, wonderful episode. No, you're not hearing me being drunk at all. I'm just calling in, totally not inebriated. I only had too many gin and tonics and gimlets. And anyway, I still think it was a good episode. Highly enjoyed it. And I will talk to you all soon. Keep up the great work.
Hey, dude, that is fine if the worst you do when you've had a few gin and tonics is calling to us and talk about the Devil Swine. I am more than okay with that. And we're really glad you enjoyed the episode. Yeah, the House on the Borderlands, I've read that story so many times I don't even know, and enjoyed reading it again to prepare for that episode.
I could not get to the Anchor app fast enough to say river, exclamation point. I kept your episode playing and I wanted to get the answer out before you said it. But like I said, I couldn't open the app fast enough. But river, absolutely. I love that riddle. I've used it before. I'm almost positive it's in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King in the third book when they're riddling Blaine the Mono. I think that's one of the rivers. But anyway, awesome river, awesome riddle. And I'm excited to get into the rest of the episode. Peace out.
Yeah, I think it might be a variation of one of the riddles that come up when Bilbo and Gollum are riddling in that story. It's almost certainly in the Charlie the Choo-Choo bit in the Dark Tower. And yeah, I particularly found it in Journey Quest, which is an excellent show to take a look at on YouTube from Dead Gentleman Productions.
Hey there, you two. Awesome episodes on rivers. I totally agree. I love using rivers in my encounters. Bridges over rivers, washed out bridges over rivers, flooded rivers. I once had a character die by falling off a log over a river into a brook that was, less than a foot deep, but they were already super low on hit points. The fall knocked them unconscious, and their character ended up drowning in like a few inches of water. So, yeah, even the shallowest river can be deadly. Anyway, great stuff. Can't wait for the next one. Peace out.
Thanks very much, Joe. Glad you enjoyed the river episode. I'm a massive fan of using them in games. And I think, although I didn't really mention this in the episode, there's also something mysterious about rivers and sort of deeper bodies of water, because you never really know what's sort of lurking beneath the surface, and it's quite a sort of alien environment to most of us.
You've also got that whole like liminal space thing of water to earth. It's somewhere in between the two.
Yeah. And while we're talking about rivers, I should also mention that my old friend Rob Davis sent us an email, and he was saying he enjoyed the episode on rivers, and he has a sort of, I suppose, stock encounter that he's used a number of times, and he handily sent me like a little sort of paint diagram. And it's basically the idea of some bandits or some bad guys jumping on a barge, heading down a fast-flowing river. The player characters are trying to catch them up. You've got 2 or 3 rounds of combat while the barge is moving down the river. Then it sort of splits into like a sort of sort of fork on the river. If the oarsmen aren't at the station, they can miss the safer fork that goes off, and it'll carry on down the main one, which ends in like a big sort of waterfall. Mm-hmm. And there's some trees with dangling vines that you can try and grab if you should have the misfortune to go down that way, to sort of save yourself before the barge crashes over the waterfall. And I think that's just a really cool little encounter, which sums up another great thing about rivers, which is the whole factor of like, it's got like an inbuilt timer to it. Mm-hmm. Because if someone gets swept away down the river, you've got to get to them before they drown, before they hit a waterfall or something like that. If you're fighting on a boat, obviously you need to deal with that combat but quick, so you can actually take control of the boat and try and steer where you're going. So I think it's another way of having a timer and keeping an encounter like sort of fast and frenetic within the game. So thank you very much to Rob Davis for sending us that email and that diagram. So that's it for this voicemail episode. Thank you to all our wonderful callers. If you'd like to get in touch and maybe be featured in a future episode to talk about any of the episodes we've done, or maybe you've got suggestions for stuff you'd like to see in the future, or just have a chat about RPGs in general, there's a few ways you can get in touch with us. One is you can leave a voicemail message on the SpeakPipe website. There'll be a link in the description down below. If you're having trouble with that, we do still have our old Anchor account open. Again, there'll be a link down below and you can leave a voicemail on that. Or, as Rob Davis did, you can leave us an email at rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. Until we speak to you again, take care. Stay safe, and whatever you're playing, have fun.
Bye.